So, what I want to talk about today is what does it mean if your shares, your investment portfolio loses value? It goes, say, from 10,000 to 1,000. What does that mean for you? What's made me make this video is something that I saw on a video on YouTube. I'll play the clip in just a moment, where Professor Scott Galloway was talking about an incident. It's really sad. It's really sad. Here we go. Let's play it.
And that is this young man, a 19-year-old, I think he was a sophomore at Oklahoma State. Nice kid, no history of mental illness, good family. You see this kid and you just see your son. I don't care who you are. You see your kid and you see like, okay, there by the grace of God go my kids. Bought options on Robinhood, got messages saying he was down $60,000. He wasn't. They were errant messages. Spent all night sleepless emailing Robinhood to try and get some sort of response from customer service because, they're in the business of hyperscaling, and because they didn't place any sort of regulation or any sort of safeguards, they didn't get back to the kid, and the kid leaves a note for his parents saying, "I don't wanna leave this debt for you," and throws himself in front of a train.
So, okay, that's a really sad story. That is a really sad story. So, what can we do around these sorts of things? Let's clarify something. If you're going to invest in the market, and again, everything I'm going to share is not personal advice, but advice I think that is worth considering so we don't have situations like that. That's super sad. That's super sad. Okay, firstly, one, if you're going to invest, don't go on shorts, don't go on options if you're new to the market. If you've got millions and you've been playing the game for ages, look at options, look at shorts. If you don't know what those are as a mechanism, you're gambling against something happening and you have to pay a premium. If what you've gambled on isn't happening, you've got to pay a premium. If it does happen, you get paid out. If you want to see more on it, maybe The Big Short is really interesting. And of course, ask the questions in AI and you'll get pretty good answers there too. So options, shorts, put them aside. If you're starting to invest, go on a low cost index fund. So it's spread across the market, um, and invest that way. That's step one, or that's the first consideration. Okay. Now, if you've invested 10,000 and it goes down to 1,000, remember when it goes down from 10,000 to 1,000, that is just the current value of those shares you own. If you sell them right now, you will only get 1,000 for them. If you don't sell them, it could go on to 500 or it could bounce back to 5,000 or even go up to 20,000. So the value is the current value that you'll get if you sell them. If you're not selling them, don't lose too much sleep over it. The other point is if it goes from 10,000 to 1,000, these are shares that you've invested in. You don't owe anyone anything. If poor decisions have been made around the running of that organization, the people that are culpable for those poor decisions are the directors, the board of directors, not you. If your value of shares goes from 10,000 to 1,000, you don't owe anyone anything and you're not going to get into any trouble for that. You've lost, though, if you sell your shares right now, you've lost $9,000. That's it. Next consideration, don't take out a loan that you can't service to buy shares. Best to save. I can't look down the eye of the camera and go, definitely don't take out a loan, because I did to get into the market. But the loan I took out, I knew I could pay off super fast, and it was only a small portion of the assets that I owned. So it wasn't a big portion, it wasn't 80%. So if you take out a $10,000 loan to buy $10,000 worth of shares, and those $10,000 worth of shares is, 80% of your portfolio, which might be 12,500 sort of in terms of assets, that's probably over leveraged. That's all going to come to crunch if, for example, your revenue stream stops, and that might be wage or a salary, and then you can't pay back the service the loan, and then the loan goes from $10,000 to $14,000 worth of value. Okay, that's troublesome. Now, of course, when everything comes to the crunch like that, where you've taken out a loan, you bought shares, those shares are crashed in value, and you can't service the loan, then that's where it gets crunchy. That's the reason why you don't do those sort of practices right at the start when you're starting to invest. Save up the cash, save up the 10,000, invest it. Another point, only invest in shares what you can afford to lose. If you can't afford to lose $10,000, don't invest $10,000. Consider something like investing $3,000 and saving $7,000. Over time, you might change that proportion as you get towards $50,000. Then you might do a 25-25 split or a 40-10 split. But only invest what you can afford to lose and your life will continue on. Worst case scenario, that $40,000 goes down to zero. Another consideration, don't invest in just a couple of types of shares. Again, unless you've been in the market for a long time and you've built up a good portfolio and you want to just gamble, and it is a gamble because we can't predict the future on just a couple of shares. It's better to get a low-cost indexed fund, meaning it covers, the S&P 500 or maybe share markets all over the world. So any money you invest is across, say, 2,000 different companies. Um, and low cost meaning you're not having to pay high fees to have your money there in those shares. That offers more safety at the start and reduces, not completely negates the vulnerability that share price will go down to zero. Right. I think that pretty much sums it up. So the last thing, again, to reiterate a point, if you've taken out a loan, you've paid, you bought $10,000 worth of shares, they go down to $1,000 worth of value, you don't owe any money except for that loan, but that's something separate. So just be cognizant of that. This story is really sad that kid thought that they owed, $60,000. A lot of that stuff just complete misinformation. But to excuse me, stay safe. Don't take out a big loan. Don't invest it all in shares. Be really conscious about the proportion that you keep in cash and the proportion you keep in shares. And yeah, when you're starting out, it's probably best that you buy a low index fund that covers a lot of shares, a low cost index. All right, that's it. That's it. Sad story. If you're worried about anyone that is in that position, maybe share this video with them. Of course, when you build a big base, and if your assets start to become worth 100 or 200 or 500,000 or even a million, that's when you can carve off something like 10% if you want, and then start to invest those in individual shares. I'm not saying wait till that. I'm just saying that's just something else to consider when you make the decision to do that. Okay, that's it. Out of here. Hope that helps. Sad story. Let's not let it happen to anyone else. Take care of yourself. Catch you in the next one.